kind of. Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. Let's first discuss the term Latinx. Should we ban the term? How both Democrats and Republicans are saying they should not use it. We're going to have that conversation. Plus, we're going to check in with Dr. Alexandra Chen, who is a trauma psychologist, to give us the latest developments about that earthquake in Turkey. Got some sports for you with my man Scotty of All Script Sports. And today is Read Across America Day. We check in with Mir Muhammad to talk about the best books we should be reading. Stay with us. All of that on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, let's start with the beginning conversation. Oh, let me start off with saying happy Thursday. And I know some of us say happy Friday Eve. But today is Thursday, so happy Thursday, folks. All right, let me start with this first discussion, which is around this term of Latinx, this language. Now, you may have heard the term, but the fact is that a lot of Latin Americans do not necessarily prefer the use of the term. So what happened? How did we get to start using a term to describe a whole group of people that don't use the same term to describe themselves? Yeah, that's the situation that we find ourselves in. Now, let me share with you first what's happening in the state of Connecticut, where in Connecticut, there are a group of lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans, folks, who are looking to work together to ban the use of the term Latinx on government documents. Let me share with you this situation coming out of Connecticut. Then we're going to take a trip over to Arkansas. But take a look. When Democrats in Connecticut introduced legislation to ban the word Latinx from government documents, they found themselves with unlikely allies, Republicans, including Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders of Arkansas, who barred Latinx from her state documents as her first official act. Now, their reasons differ. Conservative argues that the word, coined about 20 years ago as an inclusive, gender-neutral term to describe people of Latino descent, is a product of liberal wokeism. But the bill making its way through Hartford, Connecticut, was introduced by several Democratic members of the Black and Puerto Rican caucus. They argue, among other things, that the Americanized word disfigures the Spanish language, and in doing so, is an act of cultural appropriation. Wow. Cultural appropriation for this term Latinx that I've heard people use, especially in the nonprofit sector. People are, of course, because folks want to be inclusive. They want to be sensitive about all of these terms and making sure that we're identifying people the proper way that we should, but it may not be the best move to describe a whole group of people. All right, folks, so I'm asking you, what is your take on this? Should we ban the term Latinx? And I want you to post your comments in the chat section. Of course, we're streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Black Star Network, and of course, checking us out on Amazon News. But I want you to post your thoughts, because I find myself at a couple of times I've used it. Then I thought about it and I was like, I'm not using it. And here's why. I want to share with you what Pew Research have said about using the term Latinx, which I think is absolutely mind-blowing. That as much as people like to be sensitive about certain things, like, oh man, we got to make sure we identify people and all this good stuff. Here's what Pew Research, they did a study. And you can go to their website, pewresearch.org, folks, and see what the study is about. But they did a study about this very term, and they have found out, based on their research, that about 1 in 4 U.S. Hispanics have heard of Latinx. 1 in 4, so that's about 25%. They just simply have heard of Latinx. But check this out. Just 3% actually use the term to describe themselves. Wow. So 1 in 4 actually heard it, 25%, but just 3% actually use it to describe themselves. So that must mean that maybe we shouldn't use it. Here's it is. Young Hispanic women among the most likely to use that term. Now, this is what they consider, and according to Pew Research, they consider this to be a pan-ethnic label describing the population whose roots trace back to Latin America and Spain. And there has been a huge conversation. I just saw a TikTok from one sister, folks, a Black woman who is now using that platform to change the conversation and the narrative about Afro-Latina and even indigenous Latinos. And so there is a lot of differentiation and nuances in these terms. But most Latin, according to Pew Research, most Latino adults have not heard of the term. Few use it. And so you're talking about a huge swath of people who never heard of it, nor do they use it. So why do we use it? So are you in agreement with Hartford, Connecticut? And and I know some of us may not want to admit this. Are you maybe in agreement with Trump, former Trump administration official, now turned governor, Sarah Huckabee, that the term should not be used? Now, she has her reason for being part of the woke movement, but just in terms of out of respect for those people who you're referring to, should we keep using it? Share your thoughts. I would love to hear what you got to say. All right, let me take a couple of comments from you. And Tiana, thank you so much for checking in. You said if the Latino community are not using the word, then let's not use it. That seems pretty simple to me. And you know what the funny part is, folks? I actually have gone back and forth with some people who are just like, no, if you use Latino, you're going to be insulting them. When actually it's the opposite. If you use Latinx, you're insulting them. Now, look, some of the members of the Connecticut policymakers, they made the point saying that, look, there are terms in the Spanish language, in the language that we use, that doesn't need to worry about inclusiveness. And not to say that there aren't folks that who identify themselves as gender neutral, but it's just that they're like, look, it doesn't need to be said. And this whole idea, this terminology, it got me thinking about language and how we go by just identifying people. And as they say in the bill, that it's an Americanized word, right? Like in America, folks love to put labels on you. We love, and as much as we shun it, we actually love identity politics. We love the fact that somebody can say, oh, you're this, or you're that, or this is the group you're part of. Oh, you are. And then from the very small label, we tried to create this whole narrative about a whole person, right? I was reading this Time article piece, this Time magazine article last night. I'm talking about this very issue of there's this larger movement in America about gender identity and gender identity and everything. It's like we often say, oh, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, or I'm Jewish, or I'm agnostic, or I'm Catholic, I'm boom, boom, that in the religious terms, or I'm liberal, I'm conservative, blah, blah, blah. But when we think about, and this is one of the points that the article was making, the writer was making, the writer said, I'm Jewish, but I do take, traditions. My food eating habits is from some parts of Africa. The way I season my food can also be from parts of India. You know, I like doing this from that originated from that. So can we really say that we're just one type of person? And it made me think, can we really say that? Can we just say, oh, we're just one type of person? Let's talk about for Black America. We get our traditions from a number of places, whether it's talking about from the motherland, whether it's talking about from the Middle East. My name has Middle Eastern roots. We get our traditions and really our personality and who we are from various places. Some of us do have white people that are part of the family lineage, right? Do you deny yourself that? Some people, of course, some have Native Americans. Some folks, they have a whole industry where you can look at your genealogy and try to figure out what your roots are. Well, if that's the case, then how can we just label another group of people as just being that? I want to get your thoughts on this. All right, Truth is Power. You said, so what is that supposed to be, an upgrade? So what is the upgrade for Black identity? It's just a word to set you aside in a group, but there's really no group, just the human race. It doesn't matter. I hear you. I hear you. Truth is Power. I agree with you, but bro, look, capitalism will make you want to identify yourself. I'm going to just say that. The systems that we're currently a part of will force you to want to identify who you are, right? When we do the census, it's the same way as the census. You know, you have Black, white, you have Asian, Latino, you have a couple of different variations or a couple of different ethnic groups that are identified. But this is the way things are, because capitalism is all about breaking us up into these little small parts, right? This is just me talking, folks. I mean, if you look at how our economic system, how our culture, everything is about breaking us into small parts and never accepting the whole of us. And I push back on that now. I'm pushing back on that, folks. So I hear what you're saying, Truth is Power, but trust and believe it is something that we need to look at it from not just a cultural standpoint, but also from a systemic standpoint. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm going to just get a little bit more of your comments and hear what your thoughts are about banning Latinx. Share with me what you think. Hit us up on YouTube. Make sure that you post your comments there or on our Facebook page. And of course, stay tuned because we got a lot more conversation to go. Stay tuned. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, got to fix the camera there. There we go. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We are talking about should we ban the term, Latinx. And folks, this is a big term that a lot of people are looking at, especially in states such as Connecticut and Arkansas, where we're looking at there is now being some policy and some legislation around the use of the term. All right, let me hear from you folks. Make sure y'all post your comments in the chat as we're talking about banning this term and what does that actually mean moving forward, as Latinx is not a term that has been accepted by the Latino community, nor is it even used by the Latino community. All right, let me go back to what you got to say. Greg Valdez, I appreciate you for checking in. You say, Greg, it's simple. Latino isn't a racial group. We range from white to black. Most of us are mixed though. Also, Latino is a term that came Europe originally, the Roman Empire, actually. So it's a term that was already pushed upon a group of people in order for them to be identified by the Europeans and the Romans. Interesting. Very, very interesting take on this, Greg. Thank you so much for posting that. Danita, you checked in to say, look, they need to stop throwing these labels on people. Our label changed, 5 times? Right. I think so. We were the N-word. We were Negro. We were colored. We've been black. We've been Afro-American, and then it's African-American. So yeah, all of that. Absolutely. I agree with you on that one. Thank you, Danita, for checking in. All right, Shalinda, thank you so much for checking in. All roots come from melanated people, whether they acknowledge it or not. That's true. But here's the thing. I think that we're in a very, very important and special place where at this point that we have to try to figure out, okay, how do we want to be seen in the world? This is often a part of the conversation around Black folks, but I think that it applies to any other group of people that are looking to redefine who they are and more importantly, how they want to be presented and how they want to be seen in the world. So it is very, very important, folks, that we do have this conversation. And I'm actually glad that in Connecticut that Black and Puerto Ricans are coming together to figure out what better way to be referred to. See, this is some of us. And I know that if you've been kind of watching the relationship between the Black and brown community, and some of y'all get mad at me because you want to always include brown folks. I'm going to include brown folks because I understand that humanity is so multidimensional, multifaceted, right? But here's the big part of it. Latino folks, those who come from Latin America, their roots are intermingled with roots from those of us who come from Africa, right? And more importantly, we have all been affected by the poison of white supremacy. We've all been affected. So we can keep going back and forth and act as if that, this person doesn't exist, or this person is not my brother, or this is not, when we can't be friends with this person. But I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot, to be honest with you folks. Just because we talk about Black and brown in the same space, in the same reference, in the same sentence, doesn't necessarily mean we're diminishing Black. It doesn't mean that. I think that it's just showing growth and evolution to understanding at the root of all of this, we're still a part of something bigger beyond just our little acknowledgement or tribe or our little language. So that's the big thing. Shalinda, to your point that all roots come from melanated people, you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you for saying that. Tiana, you said Latinx is supposed to be inclusive and gender neutral. But the question is, here's the question, Tiana. Who created the term? Who decided for those who have Latin American descent or Latino or Hispanic or those who are considered themselves Hispanic, who decided that Latinx was going to be the term? Now, they can create their own gender neutral inclusive term. The part about it is somebody else determined what that label is. Somebody else determined what that will be. That's the part about it. And I don't want any of one of us to lose sight of that they didn't call themselves Latinx. It was determined by somebody else, right? So it's the same way for Black folks that we don't call ourselves certain things. Sometimes it's determined by someone else. And you can't say, well, it's something that they want when the research shows, and that Pew research that I shared with you earlier today, folks, that's from 2020. So it's only been about 2.5 years, or a little bit less than 2 years, about 2 years. But if 3% of Latinos actually refer to themselves as Latinx, but you have 97%, and out of that 97, only 25% actually referred. You still got a huge amount of people that don't refer or you even use the term or don't even acknowledge the term. can we just say it's time to maybe put the term to sleep? I'm just saying, folks, it may be that time for us to put the term to sleep. And at this point, if we continue to do that, then we'll find, if we continue to use the term, then guess what? It will be harder and harder to build a relationship with groups of people if you refuse to talk to them the way they want to be seen in the world. Now, that's the same thing. People say the same thing about the LGBTQ community, right? They have certain terminology on how they want to be seen in the world. And I tell folks all the time, especially older folks, right? If somebody says, hey, I want you to, and it's something very basic. They don't have to be a part of the LGBTQ community. If somebody says, hey, my name is Richard, but you can call me Rich. Oh, no, I'm not calling you Rich. I'm calling you your full name. Well, I prefer to be called Rich. No, I prefer to call you your full name because that's the name your mother gave you. Look how silly that sounds. Look how it shows that you're not willing to respect the person and how they want to be seen. You know, I remember as a child growing up, my name was being Farajii. People often was like, well, do you have that's a different name. Do you have a nickname? No, my name is Farajii. It's not a long name, folks. It's 7 letters. It's like, no, my name is Farajii. Just open your mouth and say Farajii. That's it. There's nothing. There's no, I don't want you to call me Far. I don't want you to call me F. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like Farajii. We need to be respectful of the people who on how they want to be seen in the world. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. All right, folks, I got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to switch gears, and I appreciate y'all for jumping into the conversation. We're going to switch gears, and I'm going to share with you and have our very special guest, Dr. Alexandria Chin, to check in with us to talk about the earthquake in Haiti, in Turkey, and so much more. Stay with us. The culture is coming at you right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage. as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, wanted to switch gears and have a conversation about what's going on in the country of Turkey, and more importantly, what's going on in other parts of in that part of the world, as there's so much civil unrest, natural disasters, and so much more. So today we wanted to have a conversation to talk about how those folks over across the water are handling all of this trauma that they're experiencing. And so I'm so happy to have a very special guest, Dr. Alexandra Chen, who is a trauma psychologist, here joining us, talk to us about what's happening in that part of the world, and more importantly, what we can do to support those in need. Also, I'm joined by my sister, Laura Albas, who is a senior digital editor and communications for the Palestinian organization, and she does great journalism work for Palestinian rights and every other space covering Palestinian news, as they are continuing to talk about the issues that they're experiencing across the water. So we want to welcome Dr. Alexandra Chen, my sister Laura. Thank you both for being with us here on The Culture.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Doc, first let me start with you. Let's talk about what's happening in Turkey right now. What's the latest that you've heard about this situation? Because it seems like there's still, it's still a lot of mystery as to terms of the impact of this earthquake. Give us, what have you been hearing on the ground?
Hi, Farajii. First of all, thank you so much for having both me and Laura. I really appreciate it. So as you know, there was a 7.8 earthquake on the 6th of February. Which feels like maybe a long time ago for some of us, but for those who have been really affected, is very much still a reality, especially as it was followed up. There was a second one shortly after that, and then one just a week ago. So for most of the people in both Turkey and Syria, as it's affected the border between the two countries most strongly, those living in the border towns and villages have been often rendered homeless because they've lost their homes have been destroyed, or they're sleeping on the streets because they're not sure if their homes are safe to come back to at the moment. Unfortunately, a lot of the infrastructure, particularly in Syria, was already affected during the war, as you can imagine, in Aleppo and Idlib. So that's been affected quite seriously. And definitely Laura can speak a little bit more to the political situation that compounds the complications of it as well.
Yeah, Laura, talk to us about that, covering both Syria and Turkey. First and foremost, how serious was this earthquake based upon the Richter scale and what people know as that metric?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
No, I was just asking, Laura, how serious was this earthquake that hit both Syria and Turkey?
Yes, so it's dubbed as the biggest disaster in the last century. So it hit central Turkey, northwest Syria, and it caused damage across a radius of 350 miles across both countries. Now, this is a big problem because the buildings are not, even though this is an area that is prone to earthquakes, it is an area that is known to be of communities of lower income. They're more vulnerable to these things. It's a big disaster. And it's important to also note that with Syria specifically, this is just the latest event of a series of humanitarian disasters that has struck the country, which has endured a 12-year war, internal mass displacement, the world's largest refugee crisis, and the fact that a lot of the Syrians who have been affected in Turkey, in Urfa, in Gaziantep, they've been displaced from Syria because of the war, and then they've been displaced again because of the earthquake. And the earthquake didn't just happen on February 6th, and that's it. We have to understand that aftershocks are always something that comes due to earthquakes, and there have been multiple aftershocks in the area in both Syria and Turkey that has caused even further damage to people, to homes, to children. So this is a disaster.
This and you speak about the humanitarian side. What has been the response from neighboring countries and from governments around the world to this natural disaster? Dr. Chen, I'll start with you there. Dr. Chen?
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Thankfully, a lot of countries as well as civil society organizations have really responded, especially in the beginning with a lot of support, although a lot of these areas have been very difficult to access. So unfortunately, although the support has come in, I think, especially monetarily, quite significantly from various bodies, both large and small, some of these areas have been difficult to reach, and people on the ground have said that the aid has taken a very long time to reach them. There was rescue, obviously, in the first week in particular, and there were people being rescued even 10, 12 days after the earthquake, which was hopeful, but we're talking about 50,000 people estimated who are dead. And sorry?
No, I was just saying, wow, 50,000 people. Wow.
Yeah. And that's what we know. So there are people that we know who've lost entire families. There's a friend of ours here in the UK who lost 15 family members in one go because they were all in one building. So I think similar to, unfortunately, some of the traumas they've experienced during war, where a bomb can completely devastate an entire city or village. Similarly, this felt as destructive and also traumatic for the communities.
Right, and we got we got some footage of the damage that was done as a result of this earthquake. And Keenan, if we can put up just a little bit of that footage, and as we get that together, I'm wondering, Dr. Chen, in terms of your work of being a trauma psychologist, what has been the biggest traumatic element of this tragedy so far that you've been hearing from those who have been affected by this earthquake?
Unfortunately, the traumas are, and the grief, I think, of this tragedy has, as Laura said, comes on the back. It would be difficult enough to bear if it were for any of us, but for those of us who have experienced war and also displacement over the last decade, many who have just, in the last few years been able to rebuild their lives, especially after COVID again as refugees, and re-identify sources of income. This just feels like yet another disaster that they have to recover from. Many children have, in this situation, were born in war, were born in displacement, and have really known no stable existence. And so this has been terrifying for them. And young and old, I think, are feeling extremely fearful, but also, I think, a bit angry. Often, not only that these things seem to be happening to them, but that aid has not necessarily come as quickly enough or, equally enough in all areas. So that I think leads to one of the patients that I'm seeing said to me, it feels like a constant storm, that he has not had any moment to breathe in the last 10, 12 years actually, and he feels that very much for his entire community, and says, how much more can the Syrian people take?
How much more can the Syrian people take? And for you, Laura, talk to us about the work that you're doing and how this speaks to that work, because you've been organizing and making sure that young people get involved, especially in social justice issues. But in a crisis like this, where it just seems that like there's a lot of uncertainty, how do you direct people to get involved?
Of course. So at least in the efforts that we're working on, what I'm working on with Dr. Chen is a group of young Arabs, young Americans in the United States and across the globe have come together to raise funds and to aid specifically Syrians who have been displaced and affected in both Turkey and Syria. There has been a lot of fundraising initiatives from different organizations, and this is important to note, and it's important that it's happening because we all live on this earth, and we all have a duty to help each other in the same way that we've helped in earthquakes that have occurred elsewhere. So what we're doing specifically with the Harvard Arab Alumni Association is we're raising up to $50,000 to provide aid packages. These aid packages include hygiene kits, clothing, food, but also rent for up to 6 months for Syrian families in Gaziantep, Urfa, Idlib, and Aleppo. And we have already started with that. We have raised almost $30,000 so far. And I believe these efforts, like ours, the grassroots efforts there's no overhead cost, there's no bureaucracy. These are important because they're directly with the people. And I believe Alexandra can also speak more about the specific distribution efforts we have started doing.
Right. So so you're working with folks, and take a look at this, folks. Here's just some footage of the damage that was done. You see all of the rescue efforts are still going on. Earthquake has a magnitude of 7.8. Man, oh man. Hundreds, so you can see more than 1,300 people were killed. Hundreds are still being recovered. And there's just a lot of efforts. I mean, Dr. Chen and Laura, when you look at these images, this is just, it's a humanitarian crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. And it seems like, Dr. Chen, that when we have these big moments, like these natural disasters on top of what you just mentioned earlier about COVID, on top of, political and civil unrest, and for the person, as a trauma psychologist, what do you say to the person who's experiencing all of these very major changes? How do they keep their peace? And in some cases, how do they keep their sanity during all of these changes?
That's a great question, especially because they have no deadline for this crisis, right? So they have no idea how long they really have to hold on to them, pull themselves together to be able to hold on, especially for those who have families, whether it's elderly parents, those with disabilities, or those with children. So just to give a little bit more context before I answer that question directly, in addition just to the sheer infrastructural damage and the fact that these people have been, displaced and also are without basic resources, even the frontline workers have not been able to eat properly, sleep properly. A lot of them are still sleeping in their cars, for instance, and even get, a decent shower. There are risks associated. Unfortunately, there have been houses that have been looted during this time, people dressing up as officials, pretending to check the stability of a house and actually looting instead, people being injured or stabbed in trying to protect their belongings, as well as children who've lost their families, who have disappeared overnight. So unfortunately, child trafficking is also a very real concern. So with that, it's not as if the disaster is over and they're just trying to recover. They're also still trying to survive in the moment. So so much of the fear and anxiety. I'll give you one of the women that spoke to me. She said, and I'd spoken to her in the second week after the earthquake. She said, I haven't removed my hijab. I haven't removed, my headscarf this entire time because I'm terrified there'll be another earthquake or something happens and I have to run out and I don't want to be a second late to get my children out. So she hadn't removed it since the day of the earthquake. Wow. And then another young woman who's studying in university, her mother had a heart attack, is elderly, had a heart attack. Her father has asthma, so you can imagine how that must be in an earthquake with all the dust. And her sister's pregnant with twins. And so as a 21-year-old, feeling responsible for trying to find them shelter. And this is just, some of the few stories. So how to maintain then their sanity and also, to process the grief for those who may have lost their home for the third, fourth, fifth time at this point. I think in terms of sanity, sleep is a big one. those who are so fearful they're not able to sleep. It does, we all know this. When we have sleepless nights, we feel a little bit crazy. And so there is the advice that we give is for them to find sleep whenever they can. Even in small instances, we send 5-minute, 2-minute meditations, even in Arabic, over WhatsApp or Telegram, and so that they can listen to them if they're having a difficult moment. And for parents in particular, we advise them to take turns sleeping so that they can subconsciously know that someone is on alert and someone is watching, so that the other can rest.
Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll continue the conversation. This is the latest in the situation in Turkey and Syria. Major 7.8 magnitude earthquake has hit the area. Hundreds and thousands have been affected. Thousands have been killed. Hundreds and thousands have been killed. And as a result of that, there are still being rescue efforts are still being taken and underway for this situation. Folks, we're going to continue the conversation with Laura Alabas and Dr. Alexandra Chen. We would love to get your take on it, so post your comments in the chat and stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to Dr. Alexandra Chen and Laura Alabas. These are two women who have been giving us the latest report about that major earthquake that has hit the area of Turkey and Syria, where there have been a number of casualties as a result of this 7.8 magnitude quake, and getting us the latest about how the people of Turkey and Syria has been handling this natural disaster and this great tragedy. We got a few moments left with Laura and Dr. Chen, and so many people, Laura and Doc. When we talk about these natural disasters, some people will say, well, stuff like this happens all the time. Laura, I want to know from your vantage point, why is it important for those of us who are on this side of the waters to know about this situation, and then more importantly, to get involved?
Of course. Farajii, as I said earlier, we all live on this earth. We all live together. This is not an issue of politics or conflict or ideologies or disagreement. This is an issue of people being affected by natural disasters. In North America, we've helped others who have been impacted by tsunamis, by earthquakes in Haiti, in Indonesia, in Mexico. Even Mexico right now, they've sent a rescue team to Turkey because they have trained teams and trained dogs who can sniff out people from under the rubble. So there has been a lot of kindness from around the world, and we need to make sure that it's enough. We need to make sure that it is reaching the people, because in the end, we are what's left, not our governments, not our politics. It's us, our communities.
Dr. Chen, what would you say to that question? Why should people Yeah, essentially, and I'm not trying to sound mean or insensitive, but why should people care? Unfortunately, we do live in a space and in a culture where tragedy happens all over the world, right? And so people have become, I would say, numb in some cases to the suffering of other people. So why should we care?
I think it's a very real question. But in addition to how Laura beautifully put it, the fact that many organizations in particular have responded kindly, and people in particular, has given an opportunity where just with very little, you can make a massive difference in someone's lives. These are places where, $300 can secure rent for someone, for an entire family for 6 months. And you should have heard the voices of those when they knew we were able to raise that for them. They were so incredibly happy, and our volunteers on the ground were saying that they could just feel the joy from them and huge amount of relief. So I don't know, but if I have the opportunity to do something with that much power with little cost to me, and change the lives of those who are really suffering, I think we all should jump at that opportunity, because those are not often, they don't come along that often. That's for one. But the other is that this could happen to absolutely anyone, right? The earthquake could happen to anyone. It doesn't come at anyone's fault. It's not like they asked for it. They certainly didn't ask for 50,000 deaths and thousands more injured and orphaned. And I think it's just part of what makes us different from machines.
Right. And I'm going to go back to that point that you made, Laura, earlier when you said this is bigger than government. This is about people. Understanding this idea that we are in a time where, as people, as citizens, we need to show our citizenry. It has to be active. It can't be passive anymore. You're working in a space where you have organized with young people from Palestine to DC on becoming active citizens on the global stage. And how do we make sure that we slowly get into that place? Because global politics, global humanitarian efforts requires a different level of care than what we might see locally. So how does that happen for you?
Just trying to be as aware as possible of what's going on around the world, and understanding that we are all having a joint struggle together. We're all fighting the same systems of oppression around the world. We're all going to be suffering the same natural disasters if it happens to us. And I think something that's important to always keep in mind, even here in DC, when there's a problem, we're not going to a government official and asking them, hey, can you help me with this? It's going to take years. They're going to have us lobby them. Versus there has been so many instances of individuals going to nonprofit organizations, to grassroots groups, to people on the ground who have immediately offered their help. So that really shows you the difference of where impact can be made immediately with accountability, with transparency, with trust. And I think that's really important, to just trust our communities and trust each other, to understand that we have similar experiences, even if it's in a different context. In the same way that someone may be evicted from a home because of gentrification in DC, someone else is being expelled from their home because of a political system that believes that they should not exist. So I think that's important.
Absolutely important. Now, here's the big question to Dr. Chen and Laura: how can people assist in the aid and in the recovery phase for both Turkey and Syria? Is there a place that folks can go, a website, or any type of resources that can be offered?
Yes, so maybe I'll take that. So people can go to Facebook pages or Instagram pages of the Harvard Arab Alumni Association. It is the primarily group that we're working with, where we're raising money and have already started distribution. What you see on screen is sort of a spiel of what we've been doing. how we're going to be distributing the funds. There's an FAQ towards the end. We would love your support. $40 alone can provide a hygiene kit. So, and if you give more, there are different kits that you can provide. And of course, we're not the only group that is raising funds. There are multiple groups in your local communities. I'm sure you've seen flyers here and there about events that are raising money. And I think it's important to check in with your Turkish community members, with your Syrian community members, with your Arab community members. How are they doing? How are their families doing? And we would really appreciate it if you could donate or help in any way.
That sounds awesome. Laura Albas, Dr. Alexandra Chen, we appreciate you for giving us an update, giving us a report about this, but more importantly, giving us an opportunity to show our humanity in other parts of the world. This is certainly needed, folks. And, again, some of my culture crew members, y'all are saying, hey, this could happen in America, and we would want someone to step up from other countries to be there for us too. So, it's a very real possibility. Here in California, it was snowing in Burbank yesterday. So if it was snowing in Southern California, then something like this can certainly happen on this part of the world. Dr. Chen, Laura, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, Farajii. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk a little more about what's going on with the culture and the latest news. We're going to be checking in and talking about a host of things. So just stay with us, folks. We got a lot to talk about here on the culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's now check in with sports with my guy, Scotty from All Scripts TV, giving us some latest to talk about some of the big headlines in sports. Scotty, good afternoon, sir. How you feeling, brother?
What's good, man? Listen, I always feel good when I join this channel.
I appreciate you, man. All right, first and foremost, let's first talk about Jalen Carter and how he has let's talk about him, bro. Let's talk about Jalen here. Jalen is a little bit in some hot water because of a tragic accident that took one of his teammates and one of the team staffers. He decided to turn himself in. If you're not familiar, Jalen Carter is the top NFL draft prospect, and now he's charged with racing that ended in a fatality. He has turned himself in. He's from the former Georgia star, and he's been charged with reckless driving. Man, oh man! Now this is all across the NFL. Because of the fact of not just because of the fatalities, but also because he was up to be the number one of the top prospects in the draft next month. So go ahead, bro.
He's rated the number one. He's rated the number one defensive player.
Number one defensive player, and he's involved in a racing accident that led to 2 people being killed.
Yeah, allegedly. Yeah,
allegedly, but he decided to turn himself in.
Listen, man.
So first and foremost, let's just say the condolences go out to the family,
absolutely,
who have lost their loved one in this accident. But two, what's really going on behind the scenes on this, Scotty?
I mean, first of all, he's at the NFL Combine right now. So he got in, he posted bail, and he's at the NFL Combine. They're probably going to berate him with questions of the situation. That's just what NFL owners do in regards. I don't know if anybody can remember back in maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, the LSU lineman, they got caught up in like his ex-girlfriend's death, and they didn't know if he was involved with it or not. He wasn't charged, but his draft stock plummeted. I'm talking about he didn't get drafted. The Cowboys pick him up as a priority free agent, and he goes on to do good things and plays for the Cowboys and keeps going on. But Jalen Carter has legitimately fumbled the bag. And I know it's not about the money, but when you're talking about the number one D lineman in the NFL, like listen, nobody's going to draft this kid. That's the nature of the beast. That's done. Like, he's not going to get drafted. He's probably going to go undrafted. Maybe somebody pick him up on the back end. But the sad thing about it is, from what I was reading, was that he left the scene. Like, the accident happened, from what I was like, allegedly. All right, they were racing. The dude that was driving was intoxicated. He sped out, hit a tree. They died on the scene, and he just left the scene. So I feel for both families, honestly, the family of Jalen Carter for what they're about to go through, and for the families that lost their loved ones of what they went through. But man, it just shows you how quick your life can change.
Hey, bro, and not only does it show you how quick your life can change, but the importance of making sound decisions.
Man.
And I'm saying it not to throw shade on Jalen Carter, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember watching the HBO show with The Rock called Ballers. If y'all, it's one of my favorite shows. It went off now. But there was a scene where he was talking to, The Rock played he was like
a former player agent,
former player turned agent, and he had this moment with one of the players where he was talking about making personal choices. I think one of the guys that played, he was a defensive lineman. He played on defense. He ended up going into the woods and doing that laser tag in the woods thing, and then kind of like hurting himself. And The Rock had his moment with him, like, you can't do certain things off season and think it won't affect you on season. Like, when it won't affect you financially, it won't affect your stock in the NFL, all of those things. And when I hear stories like this, Scotty, I often think, like, bro, what are you thinking? Like, you're about to go into the draft. You're highly rated. You're number one. Why would you put yourself in a position where you're doing this?
You know what's tough about
now that? You got two people that were killed, bro. Like, not only there's no team that's going to take you.
Nah.
With that type of baggage.
Nah, it's what's so tough about it? Well, I mean, let's be real. Dante Stark, I don't know if it was Dante Stark. If you remember the guy who was in manslaughter and he played wide receiver, and they brought him back.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
I'm saying, let's talk.
I mean, but how long ago was that, Scotty?
That was good. I mean, that was before all the PC culture and all that. Yeah. You can't even look at nobody wrong without it. You did not. But I just want to throw that out there. The NFL has.
I mean, we've heard about people that have been involved. Hell, Ray Lewis was involved in a trial.
Oh, he became an NFL favor.
But again, like you said, it was the time
before
frame.
PC.
It was before all this. You just can't do it like that right now.
No, you can't. And I think honestly, instead of focusing on Jalen Carter, it should show the growth of a lot of young men who don't put themselves in this predicament, because in college and you're doing all this and you're trying to be a college student, but you're about to be a professional. So you have to blur that line, not getting yourself caught up in things like that and making smart decisions. Yeah. Like, I don't think enough time that we give a lot of athletes and student athletes a lot of credit for what they don't do, right? We always put a lot of focus on what they do get in trouble with, or what they do, or what they do get caught up in. But there's a lot of people, Jalen Hurts, Bryce Young, a lot of top Black athletes that do not get caught up in these situations. And I don't believe we give them enough focus to say, man, hell of a job by their parents, hell of a job by their surrounding community, and things that's kept them out of trouble and got them to where they wanted to get to. It's not to say Jalen Carter's parents are bad or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, how one decision, and remember, they just came off a national championship, if I'm not mistaken. They won the national championship. I think that was like the next night where they got caught driving and this incident happened. I feel, like I said, I feel bad for Jalen Carter and his family, and I feel bad for what the families have gone through that lost their lives. But man, I think this should be a warning to a lot of athletes of how quickly your life can change in a blink of an eye off of dumb decision of speeding and drinking and all that type of stuff, man. Like, it's okay to go celebrate your victories, but do it in a responsible way.
So one of the things, he put out a statement in response to this on his Twitter page, and I'm going to just share with you just a quick blurb from the statement. He said, "It is my intention to return to Athens to answer the misdemeanor charges against me and to make certain that the complete and accurate truth is presented. There is no question in my mind that when all of the facts are known, that I will be fully exonerated of any criminal wrongdoing."
Hey, listen, sounds nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, but even still, right?
It's a little bit, it sounds nice and a little suspicious. Like,
it sounds nice, but I'll tell you this. White owners don't need much to say no. Okay, like you can be. I'm telling you, anybody who's watching your channel right now, I'm a former military person. In the military, they say you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That is the same way in the NFL. You are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. It is not the other way around, because it doesn't take much for them to say, you know what, we're just not going to touch that, because once again, it's a business, so they don't want to have, people outside picketing. Oh, you support speedsters that kill people. You don't want all that in your organization for one kid. You're like, I'm good with that. So you're going to see a lot of people skip on him. So even though he might be exonerated, he might not have any faults, just the fact that you were involved in the situation is going to make a lot of people say, I don't know. I don't know about it. So, hey, I hope.
What do you think he was? What do you think he was insinuating in that? Like, the full truth that it wasn't his fault, that it was one of the two dead people fault.
Listen, the only way this could not be your fault is, one, if you weren't speeding, and two, if you weren't drinking. Like, if you weren't speeding and you weren't drinking, I don't know how else you being involved in this. You didn't push the car, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, what are we talking about? So it's either you weren't there, or you were there and you weren't speeding. But if you were there and you did not call the cops, they're gonna be like, yo, why you didn't call your cops for the people? Man, right. Listen, that thing gets real intricate once you start breaking it all down. So listen, I hope the kid is exonerated. I hope he wasn't involved in any of this, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, that's another Black life, you know what I'm saying, that has been changed by an incident, you know what I'm saying? So I hope not. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, allegedly you were there, and allegedly you were speeding. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. We'll see what happens in the court case, but them white people going to be like, we'll wait till you figure that out before we start.
Right. We know how that's gonna go. We know how that's gonna go, bro.
We'll wait till you figure that out, and we'll move on.
Look, I want to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to talk about Lamar Jackson,
your guy,
and what Deion Sanders had to say. He left an HBCU to go to a predominantly white institution.
There you go.
Only to tell the PWI they need to sound like an HBCU.
We started? Are we going to break? What are we doing? Because I can get with you if you want it. If you want it, I can get with you. So it depends what we doing.
Hey, look, we got to take a quick pause. My man Scotty from All Script TV, and of course with you. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Woo!
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking to my man Scotty from Offscript TV. Make sure y'all check him out on his Instagram and YouTube page as he talks about all things sports, both college and professional. And, of course, he throws it all in with a little insight and consciousness about the culture. That's why we got him on the show, folks. That's why we got him on the show. Let's bring him back into the frame. Scotty, all right, let's talk about Lamar Jackson.
Let's talk about him.
So there's still talk. The latest that I've read about the situation is that he is still pushing for a fully guaranteed contract. Now, not even just to meet what what's that other dude's name from the Browns? Deshaun Watson got, but to exceed it. Now, some people have said that Lamar is worthy of a contract because of how the Ravens perform, even though the Ravens got to the postseason in this current season. They've made it to the playoffs, that they could have gotten a lot further along if Lamar was at the helm. But Lamar was injured. And so he was injured at the midpoint of the season. And unfortunately, that caused him to not return for the rest of the season on an injury to his knee. So now folks are saying that this is the leverage that he needs to get to the money that he wants. But I'm pushing back on that, Scotty. And you could call me crazy. I don't see this as being leverage. I see this now that by him being injured, he's more of a liability. And the Ravens may even start looking at saying, I don't think they want to let him go, but I think they're going to bring him down to earth a little bit. But what's your take on that, bro? What you been hearing?
So it's funny that you talked about the money, right? I saw a report not too long ago, and I wish I could say her name. She's a Black reporter. Shout out to her. She was on CBS. And she said from what she heard from from Lamar Jackson's camp was that he was not going to take less than Lamar. That ain't happening. So that 230, that's the floor, right?
Who said that again?
It was a Black lady from CBS. She's a reporter. I can't remember her name right now.
Right.
She's been in the NFL for a long time. But she said that was just at the NFL draft at the combine. She said that the 230, the fully guaranteed,
right?
That's the minimum. That's Lamar Jackson is not going any lower than, and he deserves it. He deserves it. Now, I do agree with you that the team is going to use his injury prone as like, hey, man, listen, man, I don't know about giving you that type of money, which is their right to do. But if I'm Lamar,
look, if it was something else, I would be like, all right, maybe not. But this is a knee injury
for a guy who's mobile. I listen. I get what you're saying.
Look, we were talking. Hey, Scotty, we were talking about Patrick Mahomes and his ankle situation, right? But he was able in the final few games of the season and even into the Super Bowl, through the playoffs and through the Super Bowl,
killing him.
He's killing them on a busted ankle.
Killing them.
Killing them. Like, no doubt about it, he's MVP. So I'm not saying, look, I'm saying that Lamar definitely, but I'm trying to understand the
Let me throw it back to
talk about it.
Does Lamar Jackson deserve Deshaun Watson money? Yes or no?
No.
What?
Now, here's why. Okay. This is not about his talent. His talent, there's no cost to it, right? It's not about his talent. But if you get into the space of getting big money for your quarterback and not having enough room to build your team, then I got a problem with that. This is the same place, bro. We've seen it time and time again. Scotty, you are a sports man. You know it, and I know it. Tom Brady was not the highest paid quarterback in the league.
He chose not to. He chose that. That's something totally different. Tom Brady.
Right? Let's look at it. Look at it. When you're trying to build a team for championships, do you put all of your money in the quarterback? Because we're seeing teams do this now.
Come on, Kansas City, who just did that. $500 million. 10 years, $500 million.
Check this out. Patrick Mahomes took the team to the playoffs and to the AFC Championship 4 times in a row. How long he been in the league, bro?
But think about it like this, though. He only been in the league, 5 years, 5-6 years?
the man's gone to the playoffs.
He's good, but Lamar's resume is better than Deshaun Watson's. It doesn't even compare. They're not even.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're getting to see, this is the thing about, this is why I think about sports, right? Sports, and this could be me. But I think that if you got these guys, that's all they talking about is the big money, big money, big money. Lamar had a chance to get a $250 million deal, $133 million guaranteed. What's wrong with that?
Okay, let me. This is what I don't.
Like, literally, what's wrong with that? 250 133 guaranteed.
No. Let me see. This is, as fans, you're looking at it as a fan. You wouldn't, if you were a business guy, you wouldn't look at it the same, right? If me and you do the same job, right? And you've got Emmys, you got you got awards, Academy Award, all that type of stuff.
Right.
And I, who have none of that, and I'm like, yo, I want $100 million guarantee, 120. You gonna look at your company, you gonna be like, if he got that and he don't have half the resume I got, we starting there. So you can't say, oh,
I think it's a slippery slope. Hey, Scotty, I think it's a slippery slope. I get what you're saying. I think that setting the floor at 230 is a slippery slope in the NFL, because
that's how it works. That's all the NFL is the next highest paid guy. That's just how it works.
I get it, but bro, let me just tell you, I would rather, like I'm saying, let's go back to that deal, 250, 133 guaranteed. I would rather get that deal and then negotiate, okay, I get this deal, but I want to be in on all decision making on all of the receivers and linemen. I want to have that level of decision making. I want to be at the table for all of these other conversations about who is going to be surrounding me, what weapons I'm going to have.
Farajii.
Don't just pay me and then tell me to shut my mouth. Pay me and then guess what? Give me some stake into the team. Look, the Ravens will roll out the red carpet for Lamar Jackson if he wants it, right? They will give him a stake in the damn team if he wants it. He got to ask for it. He got to think the long game. Because if he go out there next season and he gets broken up again, busted up on that busted knee, somebody in the NFL knows that knee is busted and he gets destroyed, you got to think about the long term. You got to think, look, man, he can go to another team. I saw people saying, oh, he might go to the Jets. He might go to the Panthers. All of that. You can go to another team, but trust and believe, the Ravens will pull out the red carpet. They will make a damn statue for Lamar Jackson if he plays the game right. And
No, because you're looking at it. You're playing it as an owner and not the player, right? As a player.
How much money do you need?
You're counting his pockets. That's not how this works.
The game. Come on, Scotty. That's the nature of the business. Everybody, look, they wouldn't even put out a $230 million price tag for Deshaun, Mr. Feel him up, sexual abuse Watson.
Listen, And that's
if
even
one
worse.
doesn't count his pockets. Come on, bro.
You got a guy with questionable character that just got paid $230 million. Lamar Jackson has never been questionable with his character, and he's been an MVP. He has made you Bama's relevant, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, he needs to get less money than the guy.
No. He can get more stake. That's what I'm talking about, bro. It's not even about the dollars.
You believe. Listen, and Steve is a good guy. I know all the Ravens, former Ravens, they talk really good about him. But I could never trust an owner to be like, it's like one of those handshake deals like, hey, I'm really going to let you in the door. You can't put that in writing. They're never going to put that in writing that says Lamar Jackson is going to be in every decision made on the team.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can find a way to do it, bro. Like, I'm serious. I'm not. And maybe because I'm the idealist in that respect.
You're looking at it as a first fan. It's okay.
You can find a way to do it. All right, let's go to the crew. All right, Willie, you said just because Cleveland was stupid doesn't mean Baltimore has to be stupid. Come on, Willie. Exactly. Listen, Baltimore, don't do it. Don't do it. Remember that. Hey, bro. Scotty, remember when they paid Joe Flacco $120 million? They couldn't pay of the receivers. This is right after the Ravens won.
Flacco wasn't even worth $120 million. Lamar has done way more than Joe Flacco.
I get it, bro. I get it.
He's a quarterback. And the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have one, and listen, I'm going to tell you straight up, Lamar is not going to play. If you don't get this contract settled, he's not going to play. And nobody should make him play because I'm not about to get hurt on a franchise tag. And if you make it a non-exclusive franchise tag, he's gone. A team is going to make an offer, and he's going to be gone.
He's not going to leave, bro. Okay. I don't think he's going to leave because Baltimore is going to, I'm telling you, Baltimore loves Lamar Jackson. Baltimore treats Lamar Jackson like a king. Trust and believe, bro.
Let me ask you this.
He's not going to leave, bro. He's not going to leave.
Let me ask you this. Hold up. Let me ask you this. Yeah. If you're dating a chick, right, and you're like, oh, she loves me. She's never going to leave. She loves me. She's never going to leave. And you're not showing her that you care because you're like, yo, she going to be here. Oh, she good. Oh, I'm going to give her a promise ring. I'm not going to give her an engagement ring. I'm going to get her a promise ring. What you're doing to Lamar. And
this man, look, let's keep it real on this side, though, Scotty. This man is getting money when people are losing jobs.
You can't look. That's not the business of how the NFL runs.
Look, bro. Look, I'm telling you.
You're the kind of person like, well, if the Lamar gets $5 million, it's better than a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm just saying, people. Hey, look, man. Look. No, my point is, it's starting to look real kind of greedy and selfish.
Get your money, Lamar. You only got a short life.
I love Lamar Jackson. Trust and believe. But look, if it's between paying Lamar to just give him everything versus putting a cap on a team and building a team out, because we need wide receivers. We need old linemen. We need a lot of different pieces in this thing. And if you put all that money into the Lamar Jackson bucket and not build out the team, it's not going to make a difference. He's going to be a higher paid QB with a team that's subpar. And the Ravens don't deserve that because we have been a force to be reckoned with in the AFC North We know that. We know that. Pay him well. But don't forget about building out the team. Like, create a space for the team. And that's what I'm hoping he thinks about. I understand he wants the money. That's the nature of the business. You want to get that chip, you build your team. That's how Kansas City has been doing it. You want to get that chip, you build the team, bro. That's what it comes into because we're all in the sport.
You're not offering Lamar Jackson 10 years, $500 million. You're not doing that. So okay, so it's two different things. Lamar, get your money. Get your money.
Let's do this. All right, speaking of football, Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders did a talk, and he came out to say that he is trying to get Colorado University, the band, to have more HBCU oriented themes or oriented music. What do you make of that, Scott?
Not what he said. Okay, that's not what he said. Was he wants the band and the football team like HBCUs to be together, to be partnered in how they interact. That's what he said in the video. And for me, listen, I know people aren't going to like this.
HBCUs.
He did say HBCUs. You're right. He said that. But just how they partnered. But
right.
This is, a lot of people might not like my take, but if you're able as a black man to come into a white space and dictate your environment and make that environment more compatible to you and your team, albeit I'm happy for you. All right. I'm happy for you because a lot of people are not giving that type of freedom and power to manipulate their space. And Deion is, because another black coach probably couldn't go to Michigan or Colorado and be like, hey, man, listen, I really want y'all to play Yin Yang Twins. Like, he going to do what we do. No, man, but you coach football. But Deion Sanders has the power and the privilege to walk into a white space and say, hey, I need this to make my team feel like this, or we need
Wait
this.
Wait a minute, but here's the question, though. Here's the question. Why go through all of that? Why not just stay with, all right, I'm not going to.
I get what you said. Listen, I get, if you need, you had that at Jackson. I get it. I get it.
You're going to go to another HBCU, bro.
I get it. I mean, I get it. It makes sense.
I get it. Scotty, you're funny. I get it.
I thought about that too. I was like, I mean, you could have just stayed at Jackson, you wouldn't have this problem, but you didn't. You know what I'm saying? You decided to dip.
He tried to bring the culture to Colorado. I get it. I get that.
Hey, okay? Mayo doesn't go on everything. Okay, it just doesn't. That just is what it is. Mayo doesn't go on everything. Sometimes you got a Chipotle mayo. You know what I'm saying? Got a little, put a little sriracha on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to spice it up. So it just is what it is. And that's what Deion's trying to do. He just trying to spice. He just trying to put a little sriracha on it. You know what I'm saying? Put a little red flakes.
What is Colorado saying? Come on, Scotty. What is Colorado saying? We can bring some sriracha. We can bring some Chipotle. We can do that for you, Deion.
They sure will. You know why? Because Deion has sold out their spring game, which have been free for the last 7 years. They've never sold out. He sold tickets this year, and 30,000 people are about to be in that stadium. So them white people up there are like, you're damn right. If you want to play Yin Yang Twins, she got her hands up on it. You better get to it. You better get to it. Whatever that Bama need.
You want the Yin Yang Twins whispering in your ear, we gonna play it.
Stop playing, man. They about to get it in. You better stop playing. They about to be at it. Now, listen. Now, if they come out with the high knees and they come out with the Jackson State shimmy, I'm like, okay, that's culture appropriate. That's culture appropriate. But if they,
that's a good point. That's a good point. Are we opening the door for cultural appropriation to happen?
No, it's already been happening. White bands are already been playing black music. That's not you, because Deion makes it like, oh, it's Deion. No, man, all these white bands be playing. Who you think is on the field? Black boys. They don't want to always hear like dun 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 dun. They don't want to hear that all the time. It sounds cool when okay, yeah, but what can we get some black music? So let's not. Let's
bring Drake and 21 Savage on. Come on, team, let's go.
You know what I'm saying? Now, when you have the whole Jackson State environment, you know what I'm saying? When they all like, hey, they ain't gonna do all that, okay? They ain't gonna do all that. But when you add a spice to it, you gotta add a spice to it, and that's what Deion doing, baby. With a little Chipotle mayo.
I mean, they should know that. If y'all know prime time, y'all should have known that he's going to bring some spice and flair to any space that he's in.
That's what Deion is.
That's what he does, man. That's what he does.
Let me go to you real quick because I know you gotta take
go
a
ahead,
break.
bro. Go ahead.
Go to you. If Deion is the culture, let's be real. Deion is the culture. He's a shift. He moves the needle. He is a black man. Are you telling a black man who is a part of the culture that he cannot take his blackness to Colorado?
No. I wouldn't tell no black man to do that. I would tell that black man to be his authentic self.
Thank you. See, Farajii,
I just think it's funny, but I get it. I get it. I still think it's funny.
Oh man, that's fair.
They're gonna have the band director like, okay, we're gonna have to get a new band director. The old band director like, what? We were playing just fine. The classics.
The classics.
I can't deal with you. All right, Scotty, how can people find you, bro? How can they listen to your take on things?
And you can catch me on YouTube, man. I just dropped a video on Jackson State's president being fired for some very scandalous things. So you already know you can catch me on YouTube, Off Script TV, man. Catch me on Instagram, Twitter, Off Script TV, or on YouTube. Yeah, man, that's me. That's me right there. Appreciate
I appreciate you, bro. Good to talk to you, my man. Scotty, check him out and follow him on All Script TV on all social media. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about today. Is America Reads a book day. Did you know that? And it's also World Book Day. We're going to be checking in with Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira podcast, as well as she's a screenwriter. So we'll chat with her about some of the books that we need to be reading now. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Guess what today is, folks? Today is World Book Day, but today is also Read Across America Day. Yep, folks, today is Read Across America Day, where we're supposed to take time to look and to examine and to just discuss and read some of the books that are shaping our lives in some way, shape, or form. So I thought that this would be an appropriate conversation to bring my very, very special woman, Nira Muhammad, who is host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad. She's also a screenwriter and is in school to be the next great Black woman director. Let's bring her into the screen.
Oh, you're hilarious. Hi, Farajii.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. All right. So this is a special topic, and I naturally thought of you because you have an insatiable love for books. You really do. You have an insatiable love for books, and people really may not know that. They may not know, oh my gosh, how much you really, really love books, and more importantly, storytelling, which is also appropriate because this month for Women's History Month, this is the second day. The theme is celebrating women who tell stories.
I love it.
So that's the theme for this year's Women's History Month celebration. First and foremost, tell us about what got you so enraptured into storytelling and book loving, and just even because you're moving forward with telling these stories, your screenwriter, and that's what Women History Month is about, celebrating women who are in the arts, who are doing everything from film, TV, and podcasts. So I was like, oh, who do I know? What woman do I know that's doing that can have this conversation? So thinking about you, but what got you loving books and stories so much?
Honestly, my mom. My mother was a middle child, and she always felt kind of left out, I guess, so to speak, she said. And so my mother loved books. And so she instilled that into us at a very, very young age. My home always had tons of books. As a child, I remember books like Aunt Flossie's Hats and Crab Cakes Later, and the Duke Ellington book, and just so many stories. My mother just always kept all these beautiful picture books in our home, especially Black books, because she felt that it was really important for us to see ourselves in the stories that we read. And so I think the first chapter book that I really fell in love with was Philip Hall Likes Me, I Reckon Maybe. And it was about this little girl back in the South back in the day who was like, this boy has a crush on me. And I read it in the 4th grade. And I remember just having a crush on a boy and just feeling like I could connect through literature. And I was always a little odd, a little shy, a little teacher's pet. And then I also finished my work really, really early in class. And so it always gave me something to do. I always had my nose in a book. Hence, I love Belle, my favorite Disney princess, because she loves books. But yeah, Beauty and the Beast. And so another part of that, though, was before we were ever allowed to go outside, my mother always made us read in addition to our homework for 30 minutes every single day. Before we could go outside and play, we had to read. And before I knew it, it was do I want to go out and play, or do I want to finish this book? All right, one more chapter and I'll be outside. And then I would be 3 chapters into a book and everyone's like, where's Nira? But yeah, so stories have always been an escape for me. No matter where you are in life or wherever you want to be, you can always go there in a story. And so yeah, I love all the things. I love the mystery, the suspension, his history. I mean, there's so many things that you can find in a book that to me you just can't find anywhere else. And even though I love film and movies too, it's just something about a book that you just can't replace for me.
So before we get into some of your picks for things that we should keep our eyes on or we should start reading, letting folks know you are actually a screenwriter. So you are not just taking in the stories, you're now telling stories, right? And so how is that process for you when you're thinking of characters, you're creating a world that you want people to get engaged in? What do you think about as you're writing your stories?
Honestly, so one, I've been writing stories for forever. It used to be short stories, and of course there's been poems and all things like that. But to be honest, my stories are very much so personal. They are really, while they can be this complete work of fiction, someone reading it will be this is a complete work of fiction. And yet inside of every fictional character, there are references to people that I love, people that I may hate, people that I may have found funny. I'm always pulling references from just really my own life and things around me. When I think of character development, I kind of start with my central character. For me personally, I think once you kind of start with your central character, you can kind of start building out this world around them. And so for me, that's kind of how I work. Once I have my central character, then you got to figure out, okay, well, who's in her life or his life, and how does that relate back to them? And then before I know it, my stories get very intricate and very detailed and wild. But that's just kind of how my brain works. I have I can think very spatially, and so I'm able to draw in from different experiences and different things that I may have read or even seen. And so it's kind of with me writing curriculum, I just try to take a lot of different pieces and put them together to fit one big puzzle. And so there's a lot of rewrites. There's a lot of moments where I want to pull over on the side of the road because I'm driving and things just pop into my mind that I'm I need to put this down. And so maybe you just hit record on your phone and you're recording, your thoughts. But yeah, inspiration hits you and you have to get it out of you in that moment. But you really build, I truly believe that even if you watch a movie like Avatar, I don't think James Cameron was personally thinking about the plight of Africa, but for me, that's what I see when I watch Avatar. For me, Pandora is Africa, and, you know, the people that are coming over there trying to change Pandora, to me, I see them as all the countries around the world that decided to rip Africa apart for her resources. So I think that you can create a very fictional story that can be based on lots of truths if you have an imagination.
That is very true. That is very true. All right, so let's talk about some of these stories that have impacted you. You already talked about one book that you fell in love with early on. What are the stories that we need to kind of take a look at right now? I mean, we're just finishing Black History Month. We're now into Women's History Month. You got some books that speaks to the Black experience or to the woman experience?
I have to confess, Farajii, I've been reading a lot of Black fantasy novels lately, and it's probably because I'm working on a fantasy script of my own, and so I've just been kind of drawing a lot of inspiration. But I would have to say my favorite right now, still, no matter what I've read, is the Children of Blood and Bone series. And I'm saying that you have to read the first two books of the Children of Blood and Bone. The Children of Blood and Bone series, because the amazing author Tomi Adeniyi has been granted the movie rights, and so she's penning the script for the first book. So before the movie comes out, and I know it's going to be such an epic movie, I just cannot even wait. Make sure that you read the Children of Blood and Bone series. It's beautiful. It's going to make you cry. It's going to make you laugh, and especially if you're like lovers of Harry Potter. So I kind of really got into the whole fantasy novel thing because I'm like a huge, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Like, I'm a huge fanatic of all things like fantasy and sci-fi and dystopian and things like that. So if you can get into Black books that are similar, that's really, really dope. Like Witches Steeped in Gold is another one that I've read. The Gilded Ones is really great. I actually just bought the second book, which I have not read yet, and it's called The Merciless Ones. And so that's what I'm going to get into next. And these are written by Black women, by the way. So these are some books that have been written by Black women. I have a ton of them, but I also pulled up, and just to throw this out there for anyone, BuzzFeed, if you haven't already read these 23 Black books by authors, now is the time. So that's so hard to see. I'm not going to show you guys that. But BuzzFeed has this list of amazing, amazing books that you guys can read. I'm just going to name a couple real quick. Yonder by Jabari Asim. Why is my internet acting up? Anywhere You Run by Wanda Morris. I mean, the list is crazy. Boys Come First by Erin Foley. You Made a Fool of Death With Your Beauty by Akawe Imezi. So, just so many books, Farajii, like Find Her, Keep Her by Renata Williams. There's so many amazing books that are out there that are written by Black authors that are not talked about very widely. So look up, you can literally just Google Black books to read today, the top Black books of 2022, and just, find what's good for you, because everyone may not be into fantasy novels. Everyone may not be into, romance novels. Someone may be into historical fiction, which a lot of these are. They have something like A Love Radio by Ebony Liddell, which is about, young love over music. So, there's so many. I like this list because this list actually encompasses a lot of different books of different genres. So yes, check out BuzzFeed. The list of 23 books by Black authors that you need to read. Yeah.
Folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversation with Nira Muhammad. And certainly, I want to ask folks, what books are you reading? What books would you recommend? Nira has given her recommendations. She loved the Children of Blood and Bone series and so many other dope Black fantasy novels. What about you? What books are you reading right now and that you would recommend for folks? So we're going to continue the conversation about today being Read Across America Day right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, today is Read Across America Day, and we've been talking to Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad, and who is a screenwriter, to talk about books, talk about her recommendations. She's a culture crew member here on the show, talking about what books does she recommend as we leave out of Black History Month, going into Women's History Month, but just books in general, great books that will have you just captured and wrapped up into the story. So let's bring Nira back into the frame. So you got a couple of books that you put it out there, and then you say you should just let folks know, like, a lot of these books, great stories written by fantastic Black authors, but they're not out there on the mainstream for folks to do their research and to try to get as many of these books as possible. Here's my big question to you, though, Nira. Considering that you're also an educator, you are a teacher that has worked in a classroom, and books is, we're in the age of social media. Our culture, we look at books as almost a foreign entity.
Yeah.
So what do you say to those who may say, okay, this is all well and good, but at the end of the day, I'm not a book reader, right? Like, I like to get my.
Well, do you like to have books read to you?
Okay, I do that's a great point. How do you get people excited about reading, or even get past the page count? Because I know some books, 200-300 pages, and some persons say, man, that might take me out. Those Harry Potter books that you talked about, they are not small books.
No, they are not.
Worlds, and they have deep stories. So do you have some recommendations on how people can become better and more avid readers?
So I know in the classroom, I have book talks with students, and we also do this thing where we have a book interview. And that's just like a series of questions that I would ask students just about their own personality, things that they like, things that they may be interested in, just because I think it's very important, in addition to just knowing like a child's reading level, also knowing their interests. I've had students tell me that they don't like to read, but it's simply because they just didn't have books that they were interested in. Yeah. And so my first thing, to parents would be to buy books that are going to be of interest to your child. If you know that your child loves sports, do you know how many sports books there are? I've literally filled up my classroom with both picture books and chapter books about little brown and Black boys who love playing sports, or who are playing a sport, or a basketball player, or a football player, or a soccer player. I mean, there's so many different books out there. You can do your research and find those types of books. Also, just knowing, again, some children aren't into reading chapter books, and they may be of an older age. And so you may be like, you need to read something other than a Dr. Seuss book. They also have a lot of graphic novels. Graphic novels are a big hit with our young people today. They absolutely love graphic novels. We loved comics growing up, but now they get them in books. Even the Babysitter's Club, which I grew up on, the Babysitter's Clubs are now written as graphic novels, and they are amazing. They look fantastic. So that's one thing. Give them options. Don't force them to read. Also, have conversations. Actually engage with what they are reading. Possibly buy 2 copies of the same book so that you guys can read it together.
Yeah.
For adults, same thing. Know your genre. Like, you and I are very, very different when it comes to reading. You love to read those self-help books, those books that are all about becoming a better person. And I will read those books and get through 2 chapters, and I'm like, I can't read this anymore.
I don't want to become a better person.
I don't want to be a better person. But I got through the Divergent series in 4 days. And those books are all 500 pages plus. And I got through all 3 of them. So again, you have to know what you like. I love a good story. I love mystery. I love murder. I love a little, you might want a little sex in there. It depends on my mood. I actually read all types of different books. My favorite book is Pride and Prejudice. But just know what you like. If you don't think that you like reading, go try the Audible book. Maybe you don't want to physically buy a book. So, download a book on your phone or on your iPad or on your tablet. So, there's a lot of options you could do now, especially having Audible. Audible will literally just play for you. You can be cooking dinner. That's not a thing you could do. You can say every single day while I prepare dinner, I'm going to play an Audible book. And that might be the only time of day that you quote unquote read.
Let me tell you.
Start small.
I listen to the books while I'm driving.
Yep.
Listen to books while I'm driving.
Or when you're cleaning your house or whatever.
Absolutely. Let's go to the crew very quickly as we wrap up the conversation. Shalinda, you said I recommend everyone read White Fear. Who's the author of White Fear, Shalinda? Oh, Roland Martin. Big brother Roland Martin's book. You gave it 6 flames. So that must mean it's pretty good. It is. All right. White Fear, definitely check that out. Thank you, Shalinda. Janae, you say you just finished reading Ride or Die, a feminist manifesto for the well-being of Black women by Shanita Hubbard. It's about certain songs and how women hold on to those truths to their detriment.
That sounds really good.
That sounds juicy and good. Thank you so much, Janae. Chris, you checked in and said, look, you're reading 48 Laws of Power, Art of War, The 5 Love Languages. Chris, I got 2 of those 3 books on my Audible right now.
I cannot get through those types of books to save my life.
Love great stories. Great story.
I hate myself for this. All
right. So we got a moment left. So Nira, thank you for sharing that. And I think you made some excellent tips into this conversation. Very quickly, how can folks get a copy or tune into your podcast? You've been doing a lot of great things. You got 30 seconds. Put that out there for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you guys can find me on really any streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. You can find Queen Talks with Nira on there. You guys can also follow me on Instagram at Queen Talks with Nira and all that good stuff. And you can order my book of poetry, Rebel Rebel. You can find that on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles online, all that good stuff. So yeah, I am an author too.
There it is right there. She's the host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad. She's a screenwriter. She's an author. She's an educator. And she's going to be our next great big director of TV shows, folks. She said TV.
If Nira can get through grad school, if I can get through it.
Big shout out to her. Nira, thank you so much, Nira, for being on the show once again. Good to have you. And thank you for being so good for the culture.
Always. Thank you.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank all of you for joining us for the conversation. Big shout out to my team, King Keenan, Joel, in my control room. I thank each and every one of you, my culture crew, for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Thank my man Scotty for checking in as well. Tomorrow, we got some dope conversations lined up for you. Make sure you continue to support us here on Black Star Network. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on all social media and continue to support us financially. Also, follow me at Farajii Muhammad, at The Real Farajii on Instagram and Farajii on Twitter. All right. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.